What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Ty behind the camera again for yet another video here on Ty Drives. This one is a little bit of a special one because it is my very own 2014 Audi RS5 Coupe. And throughout this video, we're going to be going out over all of the features that this vehicle has to offer, starting on the exterior. We'll then pop the hood and see what powers this beast. Then we'll get into the more nitty-gritty. So we'll pop the trunk, see what kind of storage space we're working with. We'll then move on to the rear seats, or what could be the rear seats, and then moving forward to the front seats. So we'll kind of get into all of the details that all of the areas on this car has to offer. And let's get straight into it with the details on the exterior. And we're going to start out with the headlamps. So HID bulb used for both your high and low beams with the nice surrounding LED daytime running light. You also have your turn signals up there and some headlamp washers. You have parking sensors that span the front bumper. And this vehicle also has the driver's assistance package, which means it has the little sensor off to one side. The nice black optic package with this car as well that gives it the blacked out grille and various accents throughout the vehicle, and these nice wheels. Pretty plain hood that kind of slopes off, a little bit of creases on the sides there, and we have these beautiful very instantly recognizable Audi 5-spoke wheels, and they do measure up at 20 inches. 275/30 are the size of the tires all the way around, and some pretty massive brakes. Both the rotors and the calipers, very expensive rotors, I should say. They run about $600 each, so maybe something I should have checked into before buying this vehicle. But hey, it's a very rewarding driving experience, and we will get to see the driving experiences. I'm going to mount the GoPro on my head, and we're going to take this for about a 10-minute test drive, and I'll give you sort of all my impressions of this vehicle. Very nicely bowed out skirts, and the RS5 is just a little bit wider than the A5 S5. As you can see, it's a bit wider around the wheel arches and whatnot. We have blind spot indication on the mirrors as well as the turn signals. Also have smart key entry. Just press the little button right there on the handle and your hand behind the handle to unlock. Same setup back here for the wheels and tires. A little bit smaller brakes back here though. And we have the all-important automatically or manually deploying spoiler right here. So that is a pretty neat element that this vehicle has. Looks really awesome. I believe it'll go up automatically when you hit about 70 to 75 miles an hour. I've noticed, I'm not sure on the exact speed, but that's about when I noticed it goes up. But there's also a button on the interior that you could press to manually pick it up. We also have full LED tail lamps back here, so the turn signals, tail lights, brake lights, everything is LEDs. We have parking sensors back here and some pretty large exhaust surrounds, although you can see the real exhaust pipes are tucked inside. We have the reversing camera and a trunk release. And pretty minimalistic on the badging back here, just the Audi rings and the Quattro. Really good looking vehicle in my opinion. Part of the reason why I bought this vehicle is because of the look, and it's just got such a beautiful stance, just a little bit wider than the S5 and A5. What do you guys think on the styling on this vehicle? I personally love it. Okay, so if there was one reason where I bought this car, it would be the aluminum beating heart of this vehicle, and that is the 4.2 liter naturally aspirated V8 under the hood. And for the RS5, it makes 450 horsepower at a screaming 8,300 RPM and 317 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. Now, if this car were absolutely butt ugly and it had this powertrain, I would have still bought it. Such an unbelievably smooth, and it can be quiet when you want it, pretty rambunctious and rowdy when you want it to. And this is just such an amazing engine, especially for this car. And that is why the older RS4s are going for so much money now. Basically, that's pretty much it with this vehicle. I mean, it's a very beautiful setup under the hood, so you can definitely have the hood open. at car shows. It looks very appealing with the red valve covers and things like that. But that's basically it under the hood. And you also have the hood latch right up here. Let's take a listen to that 4.2 liter V8. Okay, onto the trunk of this vehicle. There is a pretty good amount of space. Now, I've owned this car for just about a year now, and unfortunately I made the decision to trade it in pretty soon, since I did order a new car. So I have it for a little while, just not too much longer, but I have had it for a year, and I can tell you about that experience. Now, being a golfer, I can fit my golf clubs perfectly in here. They fit very, very nicely. So that's just kind of the amount of room we have in this vehicle. Now, if we lift up this cargo net, which is very nice for keeping my golf clubs in place, we have the tire inflation kit and the battery underneath. And then we also have some storage pockets to either side where I keep my Audi high visibility vest in case I get a flat, which I have before in this vehicle. We also have some tabs here to fold down the rear seats. As you can see, there is a pass-through there for skis. You also have a couple of grocery bag hangers, which is pretty neat. Awesome grocery getter this car is. All right, at this point, we could take a look at the rear seats, or kind of lack of, but they really aren't all that bad. To gain access to the rear seats, you kind of just pull this handle here and press the button. The seats will automatically fold forward. Really not too bad back here. And this vehicle also does have the warm weather package, which gives you the very nice grade leather as well as the cooled seats. So we'll pop in here quick. I really shouldn't be making fun of the rear legroom that much because it really isn't too bad. So we put it back. So I'm about 5'10", and normal driving position for myself, I'm not totally cramped back here. It's really not too bad. You do have a couple of air vents and some, you know, AC controls and things like that. 12-volt power outlet, as well as a rear armrest that folds up. There's some storage for your sunglasses and cups back here. A couple of speakers, some carbon fiber trim, adjustable armrests, and we have the pass-through there. So it really is kind of nice back here in the rear seats of the RS5. See the overlay of the interior. Now again, this is my car, so I have dirtied it up a bit, but it is clean enough to show you guys what this vehicle is all about. And that is what I am here to do today. So put these seats back. And we'll take a look at what the front cabin has to offer. Very beautiful carbon fiber trim with some metal accenting. The RS specific door handles. We have 2-person memory for the driver's seat, heated mirror controls, and the trunk popper, all of your window controls as well, and your 14 speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system, which is part of the Navigation Plus package. Very nicely appointed sort of leather all over the doors except for on the lower, which is a soft to the touch material. And a little bit of. On the left of the dash, we have all of our headlight controls. We have the nice pedals down below with the aluminum accents and the hood release. Again, warm weather package on this vehicle, which means we have the very nice comfort seats, full powered with the 4-way lumbar. All right, so here is the key for the RS5. Nice older style Audi key. Got a good weight to it too. We have the lock, unlock, trunk release, panic alarm, nice little Audi symbol. And on the back, you have the RS logo and the little button to release the physical key on the inside. Now, we have kind of two ways to start this vehicle. We of course have push button ignition, or you can also insert the key into the dash. If you just put it in one click, it's kind of an accessory power, and if you press it in like so, that will make the 4.2 liter V8 roar to life. Very beautiful looking cabin, you know, not over styled, just very nicely done. It's very simple steering wheel as well, but let's go over that. So we have a nice dimpled leather for the steering wheel, kind of contrast stitching on the inside of the wheel. We have all kinds of buttons over here to control the TFT screen, as well as the mode for the audio. Then we also have a couple of buttons over here for radio volume, voice commands, and sort of like an information button. Nice large paddle shifters on the rear of the steering wheel. We also have a couple of stalks, one here for the turn signals and high beams, and then the other one for your adaptive cruise control. We also have this stalk over here, which controls your wipers, as well as getting more information. So as you can see, this little button on the bottom of that stalk will help you with getting more information on the TFT screen up here. So you click that, and it'll kind of bring up some lap timers, also adaptive cruise control settings. It'll just kind of cycle through a couple of those different menus. And you can also move this button here to skip between different tracks for the radio. So pretty neat. There. You press a couple of times here. You can see that they do give you a few different trip menus within that screen too, which is pretty nice. So I like to keep this one up at all times. Pretty nice upper dash. And you see you can also have a button here to turn off the blind spot monitoring. You have a couple of speakers that span throughout the upper dash, and that brings me down to the MMI screen. So this is kind of like your main menu. We can go through a couple of menus really quick. You see you have all of your different driving modes, and if you click on individual, you can kind of set all of these different features to what you'd like. So that's a pretty neat feature, and I have my individual mode set up for how I like it the best. If you go back to the car systems, we can kind of take a look at or adjust different settings throughout here. Pretty intuitive screen here, very easy to control. With the older style Audi MMI, you know, all the buttons are right here, they're all physical. The wheel is very easy to use. Pretty intuitive system, if you ask me, even for this car came out in 2014, so that's pretty neat. A couple other things to note on within the MMI screen, you have built-in navigation, which is very nice. It's an optional extra as part of the MMI Navigation Plus package. So you can also, you know, sort of input destinations using the sort of little quadrant button down there. Once you press that, you can input everything through the voice commands or manually if you'd like. We have the media and radio screens over here, which of course we have the Sirius XM, you know, everything like that. Very, very nice audio system to this vehicle too, and there is plenty of adjustment that you can make with this sound system. So pretty cool. Nice MMI screen there. Got my little phone holder going on here, and then we also have a CD player, which I like very much. Not quite sure why newer cars are going away from CD players. Since I do have a bunch of CDs, I'm kind of old school that I like to listen to still. We have a dual zone climate control down here. Now we have the heated and cooled seats for both front passengers, AC settings. It's also automatic, and we also have the, you know, temperature adjustments. If you press the fan speed, the same knobs will be used to control your fan speed, and the same for where you want the air to blow, which is a pretty neat system. Kind of gets rid of some of the buttons and gets rid of some of the clutter. Have a quick drive mode select button. We could turn both your parking sensors and traction control off. And this also has a pretty neat standalone option of the rear automatic sunshade. So I actually pulled this car out of Texas, and that is probably why this vehicle is optioned with that, since up here in Connecticut we really don't see a lot of vehicles with that option. We have the ashtray and cigarette lighter, which is pretty neat. We also have the electronic parking brake. 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission, only transmission available, and it also comes mated to the permanent quattro all-wheel drive system. So we put it into reverse, parking sensors activate, and the reversing camera comes up. We have neutral drive, and then if we bump it down like so, it'll go into a sport mode for the transmission. Then you can also bump it over into a full manual mode. You control the gears down here or up here on the pedal shifters. As you can see, all of our MMI controls down here, and the audio volume, as well as the skipping between your different tracks. And here is the button to deploy or put down the rear spoiler. Nice bit of carbon fiber on the inside. Nice little spot to put your phone too, in case you don't have one of these phone holders, and a couple of cup holders there too. Lifting up the center armrest, we have a 12-volt power outlet inside. A nice little quattro emblem on the dashboard, lockable glove box. See, has a valet mode and a little storage spot to put the valet key and the sort of a business card holder, pen holder, you know, things like that. Pretty good size inside. I have an auto dimming day and night mode mirror. You can turn it on and off with that button there, with a little compass in there too. The center stack has sunglass holders and all of your lighting inside. Pretty large light right here too, with the sunroof controls, which I will show in just a minute, and the 3 garage door openers that you could program. Pretty neat, pretty large sunroof as well. The only gripe I have about this is it doesn't move. It only tilts back like so. So it will only go like that, doesn't move open all the way per se. So interesting, not quite sure why, but that's the way it is. You have some nice little visors here. Open that up, you got a mirror and light, which is pretty nice. And that pretty much does it for the 2014 Audi RS5 for the interior features. Let's get this thing out on the road. Alrighty, so driving my 2014 Audi RS5. Now we're gonna start off the drive in comfort mode, where the steering is nice and light, the 4.2 is nice and quiet, and the suspension is pretty compliant too. This car has quite a bit of difference between the comfort and dynamic modes, which is pretty neat. As soon as you switch it over to dynamic, the ride gets kind of rougher, and the steering definitely increases its weight quite a bit. Now, throughout this test drive, I'm kind of just take it through this dead end here. We'll test out the turning circle. So just about average turning circle there. Then we'll get it out onto a sort of main road. So we'll get it up to 45, 50 miles an hour. See what the road noise, wind noise, suspension is like at those speeds. Then after that section, we will take it out onto a back road. So we'll get a nice acceleration, see how fast this car gets speed. And we'll take it through some corners and some more rough roads, and we'll really get a good test of the suspension handling performance of this vehicle. Now the roads are still sandy and things like that from the winter time, so I'm not going to push the car too crazy. This is on kind of summer tires, which, as you may know, gets pretty slippery over salt, sand, things like that. Okay, now that we're all set with the road work, sometimes the police don't like it when I drive around with a GoPro on my head, but hey, what are you gonna do? All right, so now that we're up at the more, state highway speeds, 40, 45, 50 miles an hour here, which I have been, trust me, in the years that I have, and in the year that I've owned this car, it's just an amazing car to drive as far as, you know, road noise, comfort level, and the way it changes between the levels of drive modes here. So it really is truly a pretty amazing car. Now at this moment in time, I'm going to switch it into manual mode and to dynamic, because we're going to test out the acceleration. Now what I like to do is get the vehicle up to about 25 miles an hour and see how fast we can get it up to 60. So we'll put it into second gear, I think. We're up to about 25, and and that alone right there is enough for me to buy any car. That is just something else. Something that will never, ever get old. And it's part of the reason why I am so partial to accepting electric cars. To me, when you rip a V8, something this beautifully out of a car like this, you're just simply ripping the soul out of it. And that's the way I look at electric vehicles. You know, would I be fine with driving an electric vehicle as a daily driver? Sure. But please don't take away my naturally aspirated V8s. So if there is anybody from the EPA or the government that's watching this video, I beg of you, please don't take away my V8s. Now, leaving it in dynamic mode here for a little bit, this road can get a little bit rough. It's got some pretty nice corners here that we could take. Suspension is still pretty compliant in the dynamic mode, although you can definitely tell that it's a bit rougher, which is what you would expect, and what is nice about the mode change in this car. Another thing is the steering weightens up quite a bit, and that's a pretty impressive part too. Even when you're like in parking lots and things like that with this vehicle and it's in dynamic mode, it's got a really pretty heavy weight to the steering, which is pretty nice. Okay, so turning onto this road here, we're going to try to put it in some corners and kind of show you what it's like at that. I could tell you it's not the best handler, but it definitely gets the job done. You know, we have some pretty wide tires and pretty decent weight distribution too, although when I open the hood, you can see that the motor is pretty much over the front axle. So it's not a great weight distribution. You could definitely feel the push a little bit, but it won't disappoint, I can promise you that. I'm going to switch it over to comfort mode here. Now this is kind of the roughest section of the road. Hopefully don't blow out any tires or anything like that like I did last year in this thing, which was a pretty expensive repair. But we'll get a decent feel for the comfort level of this vehicle over these potholes and things like that. It seems like they put the street sweeper through here, so we'll have some pretty nice cleaned up roads for future test drives and things like that. So that'll be good. So yeah, pretty compliant over the bumps. Really, when you do put it in comfort, it is pretty comfortable. You know, it's not gonna be like the comfort levels of an A5 or anything like that, but it's definitely a welcome change for cruising down the highway, or not so much of the sporty driving. Now another thing I'd like to chat about is these seats. Now most RS5s do not come with these comfort seats. At least when I was doing my research buying them, I did not see a lot of these cars with comfort seats. But I can tell you, very comfy, as the name suggests. And one thing I was looking for was the cooled seats. Since, you know, it's kind of one of those things where once you have a car with cooled seats, you kind of want your next car to have cooled seats as well. So that's really the only way you can get cooled seats, is to get this style of seat on the RS5. Now in comfort mode, you know, sometimes I really adore this transmission, and I should say most of the times I really adore this transmission, but in other ways it kind of shifts too early. You know, if you're in comfort mode, I get it, it's trying to save you that fuel, save you that comfort level and things like that, but the car simply doesn't have a lot of torque, and it doesn't have a turbocharger or anything to pull you out of that rev range. So if you notice, in comfort mode it switches gears kind of prematurely to me, and then it'll take you getting into the throttle quite a bit more to change up those gears to get enough power to get out of the hole. But if you have it in the dynamic mode, the transmission's in sport mode, or it's in manual, it is perfectly fine. Alright, so taking this thing for a drive, perhaps one of the last drives I have with this vehicle. What are my wrap-up thoughts on this vehicle? I have had an amazing ownership experience with this vehicle, and I wouldn't trade it for a lot of things. However, money does play a role in the ownership of this vehicle. For instance, this car has almost 57,000 miles, and by time it is due for the 75,000 mile service, which is $2,000. If you need brake rotors, they are $600 each. And it's not that the money is such a huge factor in this vehicle. However, it's just things to take notice before you buy the vehicle. But me being a car guy, I like to experience different vehicles, and this is definitely a different vehicle for me, and the next vehicle I own is going to be a completely different vehicle. It's a coupe still, but and same sort of V8 rear-wheel drive sort of deal, but a completely different vehicle, and that is why I am getting rid of this vehicle. It is no fault to the vehicle itself. I absolutely love this thing. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed my overview of my RS5, and I hope you stick with us here at Ty Drives for more videos just like this one.